Maduro faces US military pressure, but his long-cultivated allies, Russia, China, Cuba, Iran, stay silent. Oil shipments trickle, planes are serviced, but no boots on the ground. When the world's anti-US powers stay quiet, can Maduro survive alone against Washington's threat? Venezuela's long-cultivated network of anti-American partners, Russia, China, Cuba, Iran, and others, have entered a moment of strategic silence, just as Nicolas Maduro faces the most serious military pressure from Washington in years, according to the Wall Street Journal. For 2 decades, Caracas nurtured those ties to help form what it hoped would be a counterweight to the United States. But, as the Wall Street Journal reports, it isn't working. Analysts, meanwhile, say this moment reveals the limitations of what Caracas once imagined as an alliance of strong anti-US powers. Ryan C. Berg, director of the Americas program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, speaking with the Journal, said,
"The so-called axis of authoritarianism looks much stronger in peacetime. It has proven to be a little hollow in times of need."
In recent days, even as Washington positions a flotilla of naval assets near Venezuela, Caracas has received little more than symbolic gestures. Its closest partners have limited their response to diplomatic pleasantries. The Wall Street Journal notes that Nicaragua's President Daniel Ortega sent a birthday message to Maduro on November 23rd, writing,
"In tough times, on the difficult paths, on the challenging crossroads, shines the spiritual light of the warrior who knows how to fight and win."
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has not indicated whether he will escalate US operations into direct land strikes. For 3 months, the US has carried out strikes on boats in the Caribbean and Pacific, actions the Trump administration says targeted vessels tied to drug trafficking groups. It designates as terrorist organizations. Critics, quoted by the Wall Street Journal, argue the strikes amount to extrajudicial killings and are unsettling for US partners wary of intelligence sharing under these rules of engagement. According to the Journal, analysts who track Venezuela say its partners, including Cuba, Iran, and Nicaragua, are essentially powerless. Their economies are battered. Their militaries lack the capacity to intervene.
Maduro's 2 most powerful allies, China and Russia, have previously provided military equipment, maintenance, and training, along with economic assistance. As Maduro prepares defensive action, the Russians are helping with aircraft upkeep and surface-to-air missile systems.
2 oil tankers flagged by the European Union for transporting prohibited Russian oil recently docked in Venezuela, carrying light crude and naphtha, critical inputs for Venezuela's collapsing refining sector. But the Wall Street Journal's sources emphasize this is far too little to change Venezuela's strategic picture. As Vladimir Ruvinsky, an international relations expert at ITSESA University, told WSJ,
"These are small gestures that are not going to be sufficient if the US moves to deadly force on Venezuela. Russia isn't going to help Maduro beyond what they've already done."
Russia is stretched by the ongoing war in Ukraine. China, meanwhile, is struggling with slowing economic growth. Both countries have major diplomatic and trade negotiations with President Trump underway, giving them little incentive to risk political capital on Venezuela's behalf. The Wall Street Journal report says that their posture mirrors the diplomatic but non-military support both countries offered Iran during its 12-day war with Israel earlier this year, even after the US bombed Iran's nuclear facilities. Under Hugo Chavez, Venezuela leveraged oil wealth to buy global influence, attracting billions of dollars in Chinese loans, sending subsidized oil to Cuba in exchange for advisors, and cultivating commercial projects with Iran and Belarus. But after Maduro took power in 2013, economic collapse and unrest forced even allies to question their exposure. China has since abandoned numerous infrastructure projects, and as the Wall Street Journal reports, Venezuelan crude shipments now largely function as repayment for old debt rather than new strategic investment. As Margaret Myers of the Inter-American Dialogue told the Journal,
"People talk about debt traps. This is a situation of a creditor trap. The oil wouldn't go to China if the US opened up. It doesn't make any sense to send it to China. That was ideology, not economic sense.
Yet alliances still matter symbolically. After US oil sanctions in 2019, Iran dispatched small fuel tankers. Russia facilitated black market crude trading. And when the US declared the 2024 Venezuelan presidential election illegitimate, Beijing and Moscow continued to recognize Maduro. But even so, Evonon Romero, a former Venezuelan deputy energy minister now advising the opposition, told WSJ that China's position is fragile.
China could lose if Maduro were to fall, since a successor government could give priority to ties to the US.
In this phase of the crisis, Venezuela is discovering that geopolitical alignment with anti-US powers does not automatically translate into military protection. According to the Wall Street Journal, both Russia and China see little advantage in confronting the United States directly. In Moscow's case, ongoing operations in Ukraine have drained resources. A confrontation in the Caribbean, far from its logistical reach, makes little strategic sense. Beijing, facing sluggish growth and competing international priorities, is pursuing its own negotiations with the Trump administration. Both powers are also constrained by US financial sanctions on Caracas, which complicate even routine economic interactions. For America's competitors, the stakes simply are not high enough to justify escalation. Venezuela is important, but not existential. For Maduro, though, the stakes could not be higher. The Wall Street Journal highlights the regime's dependence on dwindling oil output, refined imports, and foreign lenders. China remains Venezuela's largest creditor and oil buyer, and in official language continues to describe Venezuela as an all-weather partner. Yet, the Wall Street Journal reports Chinese lending collapsed after 2013, and Beijing's patience has worn thin with stalled projects and unpaid debts.